What's going on, YouTube? It's time for another recap. This is an interesting one today, and I got some cool things to talk about with algos and magnets. So let's get right into it. So today, it's about a little bit of Apple news pop in the afternoon there. We had a lot of opportunity today. So we talked a lot about the unfilled gap above us and the direction we need from the 10 SMA daily and 50 SMA daily. Now, right now, in the short term, we are leaned to the downside, right? Because we're looking for a September volatility pullback. If price action were to maintain above something massive like a support, 50 SMA daily or 10 with the cross, you would obviously have to swap biased, right? You don't just pick a trade, let it go seeping down, leaking down. You don't just hold on to it like an anchor sinking into the water. You cut that shit, right? So as we get into it, that was the trade plan. Where is my marker? So 50 SMA right here, daily over under. What happened? Well, we're waiting for one of our hidden moving averages to catch up today, and that's what our loop was all about today. So I took an early short. We ended up about 850 green right here on this short down. Now, why did I take this short? What's the back here, right? Well, a couple different oscillation indicators said that we were doing pretty good on staying on the RSI bottom channel. So we had this little bit of a peak up, and you can see that pre-market hit right there of the 50 SMA daily, which is not registered on the daily. We wait till the live trading hours. We do not worry about the pre-trades, and that's where a lot of these magnets come from. If it didn't hit it during live trading, it doesn't matter, right? So unless we hit a support here, great. Here, not great. Here, also not great. No pre, no after hours, live trading. So when you see things hit, like the hidden moving average right here, right? That guy. And it's in pre, it doesn't matter. And when you see opportunes like the 50 SMA daily, doesn't matter. That's not true and tried direction, right? So you're not going to look for that perfect pre-market rejection and head back down when we didn't get any live interaction of open volume. So long story short, we looked for this roll here, and this was a Fibonacci base, just like we said, last week's engulfing. We have a double week engulfing. Check our prior video. I link it in the bottom in the description. And we said if we do happen to stay under 61.8 and under, we're going to come out, head back down. This is the pre-market breakdown, which we usually go back, or we usually open the market and go over a whole bunch of trade plans that we have for the day and what we look for. Now, the RSI stayed on that bottom of the channel. You can notice the oscillations bend on the bottom of the channel. We were not making any hots, okay? That's one thing to note all across the 5-day, 5-minute here. Not a single attempt at any hots. Look at this. Wait, look at the time spent away from the 50% of the RSI. Look at that. Nothing. Huge gap, huge gap, huge gap, huge everywhere, right? Lower side, though, we got cools. Full sideways action, almost another cool right here. Very close. So we spent way more of a majority of our time on the lower half of the RSI. That is seller control, okay? And with the relative strength index being heavier on the bottom, you're going to see what? TTM waves being heavier on the bottom, right? Our bands are going to be there. Max is going to be following oscillation. So we are leaned a little bit to that short side bias here over under the 50. Now, it looked like it held, a little bit on that 50, but let's talk about our markers and why things were bearish. Now, besides all of the oscillation indicators we just covered here, we have a really nice setup on moving averages. 50 is trailing under the 100. That is downside biased and downside metric. So when the pop came from this moving average into the 100, came right here to the 200 SMA 5. We shied that a little bit. More importantly, let's go to a different time frame real fast, the 30-30. We keep multiple of these up. And this was the end all be all. I look for the short this morning. Zoom in at that first 30-minute candle. You're going to see the 50 SMA. Jeez, get together. 50 SMA. Tag resistance here. So we had an opportunity to kind of ride this 100 EMA right here, right? Fail. Again, pre-market, doesn't matter. Fail, pre-market, doesn't matter. Live, look at that. Okay, live tag. So push back up, boop, and then big short down, boom, all the way down to the 200. So that popped to short play I played for about 8:50 in the morning. I didn't catch another trade till later on the mobile phone, cruise around on errands. Down here on this, I seen this wild pop. We had some Apple news, and then we took trade 2. So despite moving averages being underneath, right, 50s under the 100, 200 rejection, mainly the fibs, right, our big fib levels here, which is last week's engulfing, so on and so forth. That is a monster indication. So what do we do now? Well, we had that through a thorough pop, and you notice just tagged that gap. right there to the T. Again, we still have a double gap down to the bottom side. So this is very dangerous territory to the downside right now as we move into 9:15, which is a big time cycle. So if this CPI kicks off poorly, which I highly assume it will, and we can finally come down, right? Because we had already completed the old weekly fib, boom, 1618 here, could not get to the gap. That was the no fill number 1, fail, gap number 2 here, fail. Now we're underneath it. So if CPI is very poor and we come through with some really big drowning, we're going to get the 100 EMA. Now, if the market takes it good, and let's say core CPI is not as hot as everybody assumes it is, and we go up, well, so be it. Right now, in the short term, I'm still leaned to that downside. It's over under 50 SMA daily. That is the trade plan you need to have in your head, and that little voice inside your head to go, well, if this trade's not working out one way, I'm not going to hold on to it forever and just hope. You're going to trade accordingly to the chart oscillation and indicators. Don't ever get stuck in a trade and tunnel vision those trades, because you're not going to get out of those alive, I promise. So besides that, we had a very, very stellar chop day, right? We had some pretty good movers here with that Apple news, but after we had that rejection, she melted all the way back down and hit our target. So our pre-market breakdown, last but not least here, let me grab my notes section of the Discord. So here's our Discord. It's a paid service that we run. If you ever want to trade with us, you can come check it out. But yesterday at 7:14 p.m. Central, I wrote this little deal here on the VIX, right? And I had this little opportunity there where the VIX just had I'll bring up the pictures for you here. Boom. We had gaps. And this is what an exciting thing I wanted to talk about today, the magnets on the gap. So we're looking at the volatility index, okay? Back here, Friday, okay? This is yesterday. And we have a couple things to go here. We have an unfilled gap here in bubble 1. Oh, you can barely see it over my head there. And we have a higher low on section 2 here on this bubble, right? This unfilled gap, $14.46, they become magnets. Gaps are magnets all the time. And when we went over this, I put ES going, okay, well, the RSI is in a really nice lower high. So if we cross the 50 threshold on the 30-30, right here, underneath the 38.20, and I highlighted all this for you guys in the notes, we are going to see downside, right? So with that being said, let's take a peek at what happened today now, right? Let's go back to the 30-30. And that was, again, just the close of yesterday's ES, right? So I'm going to go show you what happened on ES. Talk about the gaps real fast. So here's ES. Boom. And boom. So this is that trade call. Here's that 38.20 that we talked about right here. And we said if it stays under this, we'll lose it. We will head down. We will break the 100 fib. First stop, as always, 1618 short target. Okay. Now, despite this nonchalant news pop there, maybe Apple, maybe a couple of little things there that whatever popped it, it still hit our target. And again, we went over those targets this morning. Called it a lot prior, but this is this little rollover here I was talking about. This interesting little RSI was accompanied by getting out of this divergence. So we were just pinned, obviously, on this trade day, came back down, created the lower high, and we just had this really nice roll. And what happened way earlier, despite all the high price action here, is we had a MAC cross way back here, right? Can't really see it on the screen. Let's move it over here. So we had this MAC cross right here. So this MAC cross, as we're leading up into highs, was actually extremely important to watch the follow through here. So when that MAC crossed here and blue line stayed under, right? Moving average stayed under, good oscillation all the way down and cut through the 0 line and kept going down. We had that short play out, right? And now we're in the bottom of the channel. We had a little bit of that pop there, and I still think we have an opportunity to go cool, and we might get that tomorrow for CPI. Who knows? But we are in the bottom channel here. We're in the bottom channel of the RSI. We're in kind of a dilemma here, right? So despite this monster gap up that we have here on the ES, we got our short rollover, right? So we have this, poof, hit our target, 1618. What does that mean? Well, two things usually happen after that. We either find progress. We got to go back to SPY real quick for this. So after something completes a Fibonacci, right, it usually walks itself back. So this was the inevitable target for us right here, this 1618. Can't really show you where that one came from because it's a hidden Fibonacci system that we do use. And when something cycles through a Fibonacci one way, it tends to cycle backwards, right? So let's say if the Fibonacci is coming from back here, where you see the start and finish from, and then it cycles up and it goes, boom, 1618, okay? Boom, 2618. And then it fails, obviously, the attempt at the very rare full play out of the 423.6. When it walks itself back down, it will use these exact same levels, right? So that was our trade bias plan for yesterday and today. And we said if the trade price action here stays under the 2618, because it will walk itself back down to the 1618. They go up and then they retravel down. Same with the inverse. It goes down, it goes back up. So this is the 2618. And we seen yesterday had a bunch of over-under support where it lost it, failed pretty good, and then recovered, popped pretty good. So we knew that was a pretty good level. It was a really good use of over-under with our intraday metrics that we love for oscillation. Now this 2618 right here, 447.56, same thing. What happened? Opened up, fail, great downside. Pop back up, resistance, squeeze, holy moly. Whatever that was about. Tag the gap, 10 SMA, yesterday's half candle retrace, closed, 10 SMA, pre-market high, so on and so forth, and then washed it. Well, once we got back under, this was my second short of the day. So I caught another 250 because I was just out and about running errands that want to go too heavy right at the end here because it broke back under what? The 2618. So once it gets back under, our next target is 1618. They happen to have magnets, right? So let's talk about those magnets. Now the gap tags and the magnets, we're going to go back to the VIX real fast just to reiterate on how we kind of assumed that trade was coming in about our post yesterday. So the VIX has a close 15 prior to the market open. So 8:15 for me, AM Central. VIX shuts down. She's done. Doesn't open up again until about a minute after 8 or so, whatever the leg sets. So between that shutdown here in the pre-market, right, and the live trading, there pertains to be a gap. And that gap helps us associate which way the early move happens to go. So enjoy that freebie there because that's a big piece of the puzzle of intraday price action. A lot of people don't know how to watch. And these gaps have magnets on them. So whenever there's a gap here, it will get revisited, okay? So this ultimately gives you exquisite targeting inside these gaps and magnets and progression of trend. Now, mind you, if you look to your left, we also have one more from a few trade days back, right? This gap, this is the big daily gap, the one that's not filled yet, okay? Now, that was the secondary magnet. So if you were going to fail, because here's our first fail, and this is how we played the original trade here, the first one. Here's the gap we just talked about, pre-market to active, okay? Live trading. They left a gap. This was the open, or this was the close. This was the open, fell right down. It left this tiny dude. VIX started walking away, okay? VIX goes down, market does what? Goes up, right? VIX goes up, market does what? Comes down. So when we seen higher, low, divergence, cross on the VIX, that was a good idea to short the SPY and or ES, whatever you play, for this pattern to come back up and fill that magnet tiny gap, okay? So let's go back on SPY, or actually just shrink this down. We'll look at what it did. Oh, I guess use ES too. We'll do 5 minute to 5 minute. So here's that ES open and drop. So we could not get, move this over far enough for you guys. Hopefully that's viewable. Looks like it. So we could not get over a bunch of this mess in the morning. So it opens up right here, 8:30. We got that 100 fib to deal with. So it pops the 100 fib and just goes bump, 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 bump. Starts bumping its head, 61.8, right? Look at the VIX at the open. Let's move this back over. VIX drop back down. What do we know about the VIX? VIX goes down, market goes up. So market did its little pop, right? As soon as we started seeing the lower high, and then look at these lower high oscillations on the RSI. 5-day, 5 minute chart, RSI, lower high, lower lows. Really good, right? Convergence with the VIX, right? And so look at that. Beautiful price actioning and RSI on both would say, okay, where's the target? So a lot of the times people don't understand where's your target? How do you get out of the trade? How do you get into the trade? Once we see that divergence or convergence, whatever we're chasing, we enter the trade. Targetable fence. So when we were shorting here, right? You can see it on the market right here too. When we were over there, VIX does the drop, finds support, right? It found half candle retrace. Everything loves 50%. So you notice we use 50% of RSI, 50% of the MAC, 50% of the last candle traded. so on and so forth. 50% of the Fibonacci is the best, so on and so forth. So when that half candle retrace support was hit down here, it started showing signs of reversal. You can see the MAC, you can see the RSI, you can see everything. And that was what told me to short and hold short until this gap, the magnet, the target, was filled at the open, okay? So I knew I could stay short on ES, right? So how long do I stay in the trade, Brandon? How do I get out of this? How do I know when to enter? When do I take profit? As long as the price action around VIX is coming up and then tagging, all of this is in trade. You do not close that trade until that VIX gap is filled. So from, what do we got, about 9:15 here? What's this bottom? 9:19. From 9:19 all the way up to the fill, you stayed short. Let's find 9:19. 9:19, that's big break. We were actually right here. So 9:19 or 9:15. 9:19 was the ending of that short that pushed back up, right? So VIX pushes up into the gap. Measure that down. When did the gap fill? Move that drawn. I guess it'd be this candle. We'll give it 9:30. So 9:30. So you stick short till 9:30. We got a 10-minute trade here. So we already know VIX is coming up. So we're shorting, shorting, shorting all of these pops, right? Because VIX is on the way up, right? So when you see this price action here, this is where the entry is. 8:55, 9, 9:05, 9:10, 9:15, 9. You had 20-some minutes to take the trade. Higher low, all RSI was telling you so. Small TTM seller waves, you had everything there. Finally fills the gap. We'll say 9:30. Now let's look where we got out of the trade. So when the VIX hit the gap, we knew the VIX was going to come back down, and the market had a chance to put in a green candle right about 9:30. So if we were short here on the market roll, came back down, we're going to find 9:30-ish. That's going to be right here. That was the end of that trade scalp for $850. So we shorted here, and we run ES to here, bottom of this candle. Right? 10 points. That's where my cover point is. So 10 points. That is a lot. If you're trading a futures contract, even just a single, right? If you run 10 points, it's with $50 a point, that's $500. So I had a little bit more on than that, obviously, but you can do some serious damage with these small little 5 and 10 and 15-minute trades. So let's take a peek at now the next instance of gaps and magnets on where the bias was swapped. Okay, this might be a little bit longer here, but the gap fill here, VIX filled. After the fill, what did it do? Started showing you opposite, right? RSI started breaking into lows in the 50% channel, lower and lower and lower. MAC oscillation, histogram, lower, 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 cracked into the bottom. Okay, well, VIX is fleeting. Well, what do we know about the VIX? VIX has a gap below it, and it will magnet, right? So this one's not filled yet. We came close to the top of the gap, and whatever it was, it picked it up. Probably yesterday's low support. Who knows? But the Apple push and fall, I had a lot to do with that. So again, where's your next trade? Okay, well, look at the VIX falling apart, okay? What do we see? What we just covered. Boom, boom, boom. Resistance at gap fill. Hit, comes back down. Boom. We have moving averages that all crossed. I don't care. People say you can't break down the VIX all the time. I can break down this every single day. We do it every single day live. People are crazy if you can't read this. If it goes through that 50, it crosses all the way back and still recovers. So let's take a look at our second day. Let's do time frame again. We have the resistance. We know a long is coming in the midst of here. So if you longed anywhere between 10 and 10.15, you are fine. Let's take a peek at SPY, 10 and 10.15. What do we know about here? We have a giant channel right there, it looks like. Look at that, 10, 10, 15. Wow, it looks like a really big base. What do you see in the market? Obviously, it's going to be opposite. Higher lows on the RSI. MAC has been grinding up here, looking really good. Not to mention our volume beat system and strategy gives us a fat volume candle coming in right here. That tells us when you're using your eyeballs, you are looking to the right going, hey, this volume candle says buyers might be coming in. Okay, so that's what we're looking for, right? All hypotheticals until the confirmation plays out. So we're starting to get confirmation on the RSI and the MAC, looking really good on the volume. This is a very important doji daily, very big support. So this zone would have been looked at, obviously coming into it as support. If you happen to be under it, obviously that's going to be resistance. So that was a zone that you could also pair up with another catalyst to this trade, right? So not only that, we have tons and tons and tons and tons of confirmation. All of this holds up. It pushes back up all the way. Now, again, who knows where you could have taken that? You could have took profit and rolled this for quite some time, but you didn't see any topping action. It stayed in the top channel for quite some time until the MAC crossed right here and then gave you another little wiggle before consolidation and going higher. So again, 10, 10, 15 long. And then let's look at the VIX. When the VIX neared the gap, that's when you're going to want to get out of the long. So when did the VIX near the gap? Oh, we did a reset. Do the tickers. So VIX was coming in to support. Over cool. Look at the RSI. Mass cooling. MAC was starting to get up there too. So you're getting out of your long where the VIX is finding support, right? So yesterday's lows, deviation, very, very, very strong levels here. Coming off of a cool, good TTM wave, MAC cross, all bullish for the VIX. So you are out of your long 12, 30 to 40 right here. That is when you want to start going, I don't know if it's going to go much lower. We just nailed this thing for, Jesus, 50 cents. That's 300%. That's a lot on the VIX. So 1240 is the number. That's when you're getting out. Now, whatever this wild move is right here, it did call the tippy top. Obviously, the market pushed one more time. You're getting out of your long right here. Obviously, because we have the unfilled gap, you're not getting pushed through that without global, inconceivable data or news or something. Something's got to come from left field to get us way up there. Global war, news, Powell dies, Biden, who freaking knows? That's got to be something astronomical that happens to get us out of there. But regardless, that's where that VIX gap was. That's where the magnet was. And that's where the top of the market was. Now, in hindsight, this was a very easy trade day. So reading these oscillation indicators, don't be, all bent out of shape if you can't hop into the game and be like, oh, I can't read these. They're all over the place. Yeah, they're very unreadable most days. Today was just a very clean day. Now, leading into tomorrow and the next, we'll have to see. But we still have the same thesis, writing in the CPI. Hot CPI, double gap down is holding, right? So we have two different gap downs that have now tested and failed any fills here and here. So if that CPI print core is hot, we will most likely come down and continue the September volatility call. If we are over that 50 SMA and swap your bias. It's a price level. Simple as that. Support or resistance. Be fluid. Make sure to change. Don't lock in and tunnel vision your trades. See you guys on the next.